Alberta's small towns didn't appear by accident. Most of them were placed deliberately by the railways. For nearly half a century, steel rails shaped where people lived and how they farmed and which communities survived. Hello and welcome to the video. If this is your first time here, my name is Mike. If you've been here before, my name is still Mike, but you would have known that already. The story begins in 1882 when the Canadian Pacific Railway pushed west across the prairies. Medicine Hat, Calgary, and Banff weren't just stops on a map, they were anchors. With the CPR came settlers, grain buyers, and the first permanent towns in what would become Alberta. Where the tracks stopped, communities took roots. Where they didn't, nothing grew at all. As the CPR expanded through the 1880s and 1890s, branch lines spread like roots across the southern prairies. Every few miles, a siding and potential town site. Grain elevators rose beside the tracks, and the grid-patterned towns that we recognize today were surveyed around them. In 1891, the Calgary and Edmonton Railway connected the province's two growing centres, not quite reaching Edmonton itself, but close enough. Stations appeared at regular intervals along the route: Airdrie, Olds, Innisfail, Red Deer. Most of these communities still follow the original rail alignment. The early 1900s brought competition. The Canadian Northern Railway and the Grand Trunk Pacific both raced to carve out territories across central and northern Alberta. This expansion created dozens of towns that exist only because a surveyor decided the line should pass there. Places with no particular geographic advantage, no navigable river, no natural harbor, just a siding and the decision to stop. But that expansion came at a cost. By the time the First World War ended, both the Canadian Northern and the Grand Trunk Pacific were in financial ruin. Between 1917 and the early 1920s, the federal government stepped in, nationalizing these railways and, along with several others, folding them into what became Canadian National Railways. For the first time, Alberta's rail network had two major players: CPR in the south, CN through the center and north. In the north, a separate story was unfolding. Several smaller, struggling lines were merged by the provincial government into the Northern Alberta Railways in 1929. It served remote communities, hauled grain and lumber, and connected the Peace Country to the rest of Canada. At its peak, the NAR stretched close to 1,000 miles. CN absorbed it in 1981, ending the last major independent system in the province. The final chapter came in the 1960s with the Alberta Resources Railway. The provincial government built the 234-mile line through the foothills between Hinton and Grand Prairie to unlock coal, lumber, and other resources that had no practical way to market. Construction started in 1966 and it opened in 1969, described at the time as the newest railway in North America. Today, many of the tracks are gone. Some pulled up for steel, some simply overgrown and forgotten. But the towns remain, quiet markers of where the trains once ran. Every grain elevator still standing, every main street laid out on a perfect grid, every abandoned right-of-way cutting through a farmer's field, it all traces back to the same thing: a decision made by a railway company about where to stop. The railroads didn't just pass through Alberta in almost every sense that matters. They built it. So if you enjoyed this little journey, give that like button a tap. It's free and oddly satisfying. If you haven't subscribed yet, just know I share a new small town story every week, weather permitting, of course. Feel free to pass this along to your aunt, your neighbor, or that one friend who still thinks Alberta ends at Calgary. They need this more than they know. And if you'd like to chip in and help keep the drone batteries charged and the gas tank filled, there's a Ko-fi link in the description. And you can find Gradient Imaging on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok because apparently I'm not busy enough. But until next week, drive safe, wave at strangers, and take the scenic route.